Hi. You probably heard politicians promise that once we all get back to work, it will all be as good as before. I don't believe it, nor should you. And you better take steps not to be harmed and, if possible, even to benefit. But why won't the economy come back anytime soon? After all, it did after the 1987 crash, the 2000 internet crash, and after the 2009 financial crisis. Why won't it do the same now, after the virus is vanquished and all of us can go out? Because the economy's backbone is trade, and there are two big problems that put a stop to much of trade, both on the international level and on a personal level. And without trade, all of us are going to be poorer. Now, why is trade so important? In 1817, a British economist by the name of David Ricardo gave the following example. Assume that Portugal and Britain can raise sheep and produce wine, but Portugal's sunshine gives it a comparative advantage in wine, while Britain's rainy grass gives it a comparative advantage in sheep. The first can produce more wine per acre, the second can raise more sheep per acre. Sure, Britain can both raise sheep and make wine, as can Portugal, so both can be self-sufficient if they want. But it would cost them, because it would be a waste for Portugal to raise even one sheep in this parable, just as it would be a waste for Britain to make any wine. Instead, if each specialized in what it did best, Britain in sheep raising and Portugal in wine, then they could trade with each other and each would have more wool and more wine together than if they did everything themselves. In other words, trade leads to specialization so that each does more of what it can do best, then trade and both become richer. In Marxist terms, the extra benefit that's created is called economic surplus or profit. This is valid both for big countries, for smaller countries, as well as for work groups, also known as companies, and for individuals. Working in what you do best with others, who do what they do best, creates the most surplus, which you all can then divide according to the agreement you had before you started working together. And the agreement is enforceable by law. This is what allows all of us in civilization to become richer. Specialization, group work, trade, and enforceable agreement. Anything that interrupts this magic group work and trading makes us all poorer. However, this very togetherness is now breaking up both for nations and for individuals. The first, because of the US-China divorce. The second, because of the coronavirus quarantine. And the implications of all this are big and will be for us for quite a while. On the largest possible scale, the US and China are now cutting off trade relations because the US says China is stealing American patents and is using its trading profits to build a large army that plans to challenge US primacy worldwide. China, on the other hand, says the US is being unfair and is also lying about China's intentions. And the fact that China just exported the virus to the rest of the world and kept mum about it further complicate matters. But no matter who is right, the trading between these two giants is bound to diminish fast. So just like Britain and Portugal in Ricardo's parable, these two huge countries will now have to start doing almost everything themselves, even what they no longer have expertise in. China won't have access to much of US technology, and the US will have to produce gizmos it hasn't produced in 30 years. This is bound to raise costs, raise inflation, and lower the standard of living of most everyone in the world. Yes, ours too, because this China-US divorce seems irreversible. And on top, there's of course the virus problem. Even on a personal scale, we'll each have to do more of what we have no expertise in, and this will cost us all even more. Say you are an expert carpenter, earning $75 an hour. It would be profitable for you to pay a cleaning lady $50 to clean your home rather than do it yourself. Because during the hour you did not clean, you could earn more and would be $25 ahead. If, however, you are forced to stay home because of the quarantine and cannot go to work, you'd have to clean your own home yourself. Not only you are likely to clean it badly, but you'll be out of pocket $75. Worse, the GDP, which is the sum of all wages and revenues, would be lowered by both your lost income and the cleaning ladies, or by 125. Now multiply the above by billions, and you get the impact on the economy due to the forced lockdown of everyone. Not only would many lose their incomes, but the economy would lose the sum total of the lost income and the sum total of all the wine and wool and food and gizmos and services not being produced. Therefore, when everyone is locked home because of the hysteria over the virus, the first damage is that all of us must do the 101 things that before the lockup we paid others to do for us, so we'd have more time to do what we do best and get paid for it. But now we can't work, and so we eat worse food, have bad haircuts, our kids become unruly and less educated, and all of us are going slowly crazier and poorer. But that's only one problem. There are two more, bigger problems associated with inability to work together. The first of these is that a small piece of the GDP, the benefit of specialization, that lets all of us have a better life, is paid out as taxes, which allows the government to give us services, like garbage collection, medical service, which in Canada is done by the government, police protections, schools, road maintenance, and much more. Only now, when we are locked down, there's far less GDP, and so many of us can't pay taxes, and therefore the government can provide us services for long. What to do? In the short term, governments everywhere resorted to a dirty kind of trick by printing money in enormous amounts, paying themselves, and also paying wages to people not working. This newly printed money is a cause of twin evils. One is that it creates high inflation, which can destroy the currency, as happened in Venezuela, Zimbabwe, France 320 years ago, and in the 1930s in Weimar Germany, just before Hitler came to power on the wings of hyperinflation. The other evil of money printing is that people get used to getting paid without working, so many will be loath to go back to work. In this regard, free money is like drugs. Yes, it may make you feel terrific for a minute, but when you get used to it, you don't want to work again, and often you can't. Yes, money printing and free wage destroyed communal life just as drugs destroy individual lives. But the biggest risk of locking everyone home and printing money to pay them is a destruction of the world's entire capital base. Because capital, with the real estate or stocks and bonds, is really a collection of promises to pay a stream of dividends or interest payment from a future GDP. The value of the stocks or the bonds, in fact, society's capital, is only as good as the promises to pay what the stocks or the bond say it would pay. And this means a piece of the group work of everyone. But what if workers are prevented from working together, each in his or her capacity, and are forced to stay home and do everything themselves? So even doctors have to cut their own hair, and bakers must fix their own shoes, whereas all of us have to bake our own bread. How can we make a future profit from which future bonds and stocks can pay what they're promised? Now, if you are a worker who doesn't have much money, you may think that the risk to the world capital base only hurts rich folks. But you'd be wrong. It hurts working people the most, because when workers retire, they rely on payment from pension funds to pay them a retirement wage. But where do you think pension funds get the money to pay all these retirements? From investing in stocks and bonds. That's where from. So when all of us are locked up in home and cannot work, even if government pays us for a few months with newly printed money, the rule of the capital base, the future GDP, means that when all of us retire, our pension funds won't have enough money to pay us, because the funds won't get dividends and interest from stocks and bonds, since the GDP in the future won't be there, because there won't be much of group work. These four risks together: 1, the US-China divorce and the reduced trade; 2, the prevention of everyone working together due to quarantine, so there's no more surplus; 3, the overprinting of money so that everything soon would cost a lot more; and 4, the rule of the world capital base are together a very great combined danger to all of us. In my opinion, much bigger than the virus. And this is especially aggravating since day by day, I think we begin to realize that much of the panic over the virus was overhyped. Just yesterday, Britain's National Statistics Office admitted sheepishly that the death rate from the virus is 1/3 the death rate from regular flu. So what's the big panic about? No one panicked about regular flu, certainly not enough to shut down the economy. So what about the Chinese flu? Now, what is to be done? We certainly should let the government decide when to open up the economies. But beside obeying the government instructions, as we must, I suggest you also think about protecting yourself and your loved ones from the topsy-turvy world about to come. How to do that? Remember now, I do not provide advice, only opinions, which are still allowed due to free speech. I'd keep enough cash on hand for necessities, but not overdose on stocks, not yet, and certainly not on bonds, unless you're a super-duper expert trader and knows how to hoover money out of the market by buying and selling. And if you are, you certainly need no opinions of retired money men like me. But as for the rest, I would repeat my opinion that the only asset that is likely to keep its value in the teeth of inflation, in my opinion, is gold and gold stocks, preferably large cap stocks that pay dividends and whose assets are based in low abiding lands. Think about it and let me know what you think in a comment below. Subscribe to the channel, tell all your friends about it so they can subscribe too. That's it. See you next time, and thank you very much for watching.